The pill bottle was still open on the counter. Next to my half-empty glass of wine, I froze, staring at the fine white powder residue around the rim. My husband of 8 years had been slipping sleeping medication into my drink every night. And I finally had proof. If this story sends chills down your spine, please like, follow, and share this video with someone who needs to hear that sometimes the greatest betrayals come from those we trust most. Trust me, you'll want to see how this ends. My name is Maya, 34 years old, marketing executive, and until 3 months ago, I thought I had a perfect marriage. David and I met in college, dated for 4 years, and built what I believed was an honest life together. No children yet. We were focused on our careers first, but we had plans. So many plans. The first sign something was wrong came gradually. About a year ago, I started experiencing unusual fatigue, not just normal tiredness from work stress, but a bone-deep exhaustion that left me struggling to keep my eyes open by 8 p.m. "You're just working too hard," David would say, his voice full of concern as he handed me my nightly glass of wine. "Drink this and relax. I'll take care of everything." And he did. While I fell into unnaturally deep sleep every night, he cleaned the house, managed her finances, and maintained our social calendar. The perfect husband, that's what all our friends called him. "How did you get so lucky?" My best friend Jen asked once. "Most husbands barely load the dishwasher." I remember smiling, feeling genuinely fortunate. Now that memory makes me physically ill because alongside the fatigue came the gaps. Small at first, forgetting conversations we supposedly had the night before. Important decisions about our lives that I had apparently agreed to, while having no memory of the discussions. "We talked about this last night, Maya," David would say, his eyebrows knitting together in concern. "Don't you remember? You said it was fine to invest $10,000 in my brother's startup. We decided you'd skip your parents' anniversary this year because of your work deadline. You told me you didn't want to try for a baby yet." Each time, I'd search my memory and find nothing. Just the fuzzy recollection of drinking wine on the couch and then darkness until morning. "I'm worried about you," David said one evening, 6 months into whatever was happening to me. "These memory issues. Maybe you should see a doctor." I did. Multiple doctors, blood tests, brain scans, sleep studies. "Your tests look normal," each doctor concluded. "Perhaps it's stress-related, or early perimenopause or depression." I filled prescriptions for sleep aids I didn't need and antidepressants that made me feel worse. All while David watched with sympathetic eyes, documenting my symptoms in a little notebook he kept. "I'm tracking everything to help the doctors," he explained. But he never shared his notes with any medical professional. The turning point came on our anniversary. David planned an elaborate dinner at home, my favorite foods, expensive wine, candles everywhere. I remember feeling so grateful through my fog of fatigue. "Just one glass tonight," I said, gesturing to the wine. "I want to be present for our anniversary." Something flashed across his face. Annoyance? Fear? It disappeared so quickly I thought I'd imagined it. "Of course. Whatever you want." He smiled, pouring me a generous glass despite my request. I took a small sip and set it aside, determined to stay clear-headed. David's eyes kept darting to my nearly full glass throughout dinner, his own mood darkening with each course. By dessert, he was checking his watch repeatedly. "Is something wrong?" I asked. "No, nothing," he replied quickly. "Just, I have a surprise planned, but it's time-sensitive." "What kind of surprise needs specific timing on our anniversary night?" I laughed. He didn't answer, just pushed my wine glass closer. "Drink up, Maya. You're so tense. Let's enjoy our night." A chill ran through me, then the first true warning that something wasn't right. I excused myself to the bathroom and dumped the wine down the sink. When I returned, David had already poured me a fresh glass. "I'm actually feeling a bit off," I lied. "I think I'll switch to water." His face hardened for just a moment before relaxing into concern. "Are you coming down with something? Maybe you should lie down. I'll bring you some tea," I agreed, suddenly desperate to understand what was happening. In our bedroom, I pretended to settle in, but instead of sleeping, I listened. For what? I wasn't sure. 20 minutes later, David opened the door quietly, carrying a steaming mug. He approached the bed, checked that my eyes were closed, and set the tea on my nightstand. "Maya?" he whispered. When I didn't respond, he sighed with what sounded like relief. I kept my breathing deep, and even as he left the room. Once the door closed, I sat up and stared at the innocent-looking tea, my heart pounding against my ribs. I didn't drink it. Instead, I poured it into the potted plant by our bed and continued to feign sleep. When David checked on me again 30 minutes later, "Perfect," I heard him whisper. Then came the sound of our front door opening and closing. My husband had left our house at 11 p.m. on our anniversary, believing I was unconscious. I waited 5 minutes, then followed. I tracked his car to a part of town we never visited. Watched him enter an apartment building with a keycard like he'd done it 100 times before. I sat in my car until 2 a.m. when he emerged, straightening his clothes. I drove home quickly, beating him there, and resumed my position in bed. Mind racing with possibilities, each worse than the last. The next morning, I began my investigation. I installed a small camera in our kitchen, legal in my own home. I checked. Then I waited, pretending nothing had changed, accepting the nightly wine or tea that had become our routine. For 3 nights, I discreetly emptied my drinks when he wasn't looking. For 3 nights, I remained awake while he believed I was deep in medication-induced sleep. For 3 nights, he left our house for hours, returning smelling of unfamiliar perfume. On the 4th night last week, he got careless. Perhaps because his plan had worked flawlessly for so long. I watched the camera footage on my phone from our bedroom. David opening a prescription bottle, crushing pills, stirring them into my wine, checking to make sure they dissolved completely. When he brought me the drink, I pretended to sip it while my mind screamed. Once he left for his mysterious destination, I took the wine to a 24-hour laboratory I'd researched and paid an exorbitant fee for immediate testing. The results came back as I sat in their waiting room at midnight. Zolpidem prescription, sleeping medication nap more than twice the normal dosage. I returned home before David, the lab results burning in my purse, and lay awake planning my next move. This wasn't just infidelity. This was systematic deception, something criminal, something that had stolen a year of my life. But I needed to know everything. I needed to understand the full scope of what my husband had been doing while I was unconscious in our bed. So I set a trap. Tonight, I left for work as usual this morning, kissed him goodbye as if nothing had changed, and told him I'd be home for dinner. "I'll make your favorite," he promised, and opened that bottle of red we'd been saving. I smiled, knowing that tonight would be different. Tonight, I would switch our glasses when he wasn't looking. Tonight, he would be the one in the dark. If you're as stunned as I was to discover this betrayal, like this video now and follow for the next part, where I reveal what my husband had been doing all those nights and how I turned the tables on him. Because sometimes the people we trust the most are the ones who betray us most deeply. And it was time to shine a light on the truth. I returned home that evening with my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. The house smelled of garlic and rosemary. David had prepared my favorite roast chicken dinner. Candles flickered on our dining table. Music played softly. The perfect romantic evening. Or it would have been, before I knew the truth. "Welcome home," David said, coming around the counter to kiss me. I forced myself not to flinch as his lips brushed my cheek. "Dinner's almost ready. Why don't you relax with some wine?" He had already poured 2 glasses of our expensive Cabernet. I watched his hands carefully, but he made no move to tamper with my drink, at least not while I was looking. "Actually," I said, setting my purse down deliberately on the kitchen counter, angled so the hidden camera could capture everything, "I need to freshen up first." In the bathroom, I checked the camera feed on my phone, watching as David quickly reached into his pocket and removed a small pill bottle. With practiced efficiency, he crushed 2 pills between 2 spoons, tipped the powder into my wine glass, and stirred it thoroughly with a thin metal rod he pulled from a drawer. My hands shook so badly I nearly dropped my phone. Seeing it happen in real time made it undeniable. This man, the man who had vowed to cherish and protect me, was secretly medicating me, methodically, routinely. I composed myself and returned to the kitchen just as he was putting away his tools of betrayal. "That smells amazing," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. David beamed. "Only the best for you. Here's your wine." He handed me the tainted glass, his expression so convincingly loving that for a split second, I questioned my own sanity. But the video evidence was clear. The lab results were clear. "Let me help with the finishing touches," I offered. As David turned back to the stove, I quickly switched our wine glasses, my untainted wine for his medicated version. We sat down to dinner, and I pretended to enjoy each bite while monitoring David as he sipped from the glass meant for me. I made a show of drinking too, but let the wine touch only my closed lips. "You seem tense," he observed halfway through the meal. "Bad day at work, just tired," I replied, the irony of my response not lost on me. "Your wine will help," he said, nodding toward my glass with an expectant look. I lifted it in a mock toast. "To us," I said, bringing it to my lips without drinking. By dessert, I noticed David blinking heavily, shaking his head slightly as if to clear it. "Are you feeling okay?" I asked innocently. "Fine," he mumbled. "Just suddenly tired." "Maybe you're coming down with something," I echoed his usual line back to him. He pushed himself up from the table. "I think I need some air." But instead of heading for the door, he stumbled, catching himself on the edge of the counter. "Ho?" he slurred. "Something's wrong." I watched him, my face deliberately blank. "What do you mean, the rooms?" Spinning, he said. Genuine confusion and the first flickers of fear crossing his face. I don't understand. Why don't you sit down? I suggested calmly. I'll get you some water. David collapsed back into his chair, his movements uncoordinated, his eyes, when they met mine, were unfocused. What's happening to me? I stood up slowly and walked around the table until I was standing directly behind him. I leaned down, my lips close to his ear. It's just stress, darling, I whispered, echoing the words he'd said to me countless times. His head whipped around, too fast for his medicated reflexes. He nearly toppled from his chair. What did you say? I smiled thinly. Nothing. Drink some water. I placed a glass in front of him, watching as he struggled to grasp it, spilling half its contents before managing a sip. I think, he slurred, I need to lie down. Of course, I agreed. Let me help you. I supported his increasingly limp body to our bedroom, the same bed, where I'd spent countless nights unconscious and vulnerable. The symmetry was not lost on me, Maya. He mumbled as I helped him onto the mattress. I don't feel right. It's just the wine, I said softly. You'll sleep it off. His eyes widened fractionally. A flash of comprehension quickly swallowed by the medication's effects. Did you sleep well, David? I whispered as his eyelids fluttered closed. Once I was sure he was unconscious, I got to work. I moved methodically through our house, collecting evidence. The pill bottle hidden behind his vitamins, the special stir he used that I found tucked in a rolled-up dish towel, his phone, which I unlocked using his sleeping fingerprint. What I found made my blood freeze. A second phone hidden in his desk drawer, text messages with a woman named Vanessa, heart emojis. Late-night meetup scheduled for exactly when I would be asleep. Photos of them together at restaurants, at a cabin I'd never seen, looking happy and intimate. I scrolled further and found conversations where he discussed his perfect arrangement with his friend's wife. Thinks she has a sleep disorder. One message read, doctor gave her pills but she hates how they make her feel, so she doesn't take them. I just crush one in her wine instead. Sleeps like a baby while I go CV. Perfect alibi. Another friend had replied, cold but genius. She never suspects. David's response, she's so trusting. Thinks her memory problems are medical. Even went to a neurologist. They had laughed about it, my fear, my confusion, my deteriorating health, all a joke to them. But it was worse than that, because I also found the calendar entries on his secret phone. Regular meetings with Vanessa going back 14 months. Hotel reservations. Weekend trips while I supposedly wasn't feeling well and had decided to stay home. I had lost over a year of my life to his deception. I took photos of everything, backed it up to secure cloud storage that only I could access, downloaded and saved all the conversations, all the evidence. Then I called Jen, my voice surprisingly calm as I explained what I needed. I don't understand, she said. You want me to come over now? It's almost midnight. Please, I said. I'll explain everything when you get here. And Jen, bring your phone. I need you to document something. While waiting for her, I checked on David. Still deeply unconscious, exactly how I had been all those nights. I thought I would feel vindicated seeing him helpless. Instead, I felt hollow, empty. The magnitude of his betrayal was too vast to process. Jen arrived 40 minutes later, her face creased with worry. Maya, what's going on? I led her to the kitchen table, where I had organized my evidence, screenshots of messages, the lab results, photos of his secret phone and the pill bottle. Oh my God, she whispered, her face draining of color as understanding dawned. Maya, all this time? At least a year, I confirmed. Maybe longer. We need to call the police, she said immediately. I shook my head. Not yet. There's something else I need you to see first. I led her to our bedroom, where David lay sprawled across the bed, snoring softly. Is he? Jen couldn't finish the question. He's fine, I said coldly. Just experiencing what he's been giving me every night. But I need you to witness something. I need someone else to see what I found. In case he tries to delete it or claim I fabricated it, I showed Jen the hidden compartment in his closet, where he kept the second phone, the sleep medication, and something else. I discovered a small notebook filled with detailed records, dates, times, dosages, effects. My husband had been tracking his deception with the meticulousness of a scientist. Take pictures of everything, I instructed her. Send them to yourself, then to me. We need multiple copies. As Jen documented everything with shaking hands, I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the sleeping form of the stranger I had married. What are you going to do? Jen asked finally, her voice barely above a whisper. I looked up at my best friend, seeing the horror and concern in her eyes. I'm going to make sure he never does this to anyone else again. If you're as horrified as my friend was when she saw the truth, like this video and follow now to see the final part of my story. How I confronted my husband and reclaimed my life after discovering his ultimate betrayal. Because sometimes when you wake up to the truth, there's no going back to sleep. Morning came with harsh sunlight streaming through the blinds I deliberately left open. I wanted David to wake disoriented, confused just like I had so many mornings, struggling to piece together lost hours. What happened? His voice was raspy, confused as he squinted against the light. He tried to sit up, then groaned, clutching his head. Maya, why do I feel so awful? I sat in the armchair across the room, calm and collected. Jen had left hours ago, but not before helping me set up the recording devices, one visible on the dresser, another hidden, both capturing every word. You don't remember? I asked, my voice neutral. That's strange. Memory issues can be so troubling, can't they? He blinked at me, confusion giving way to wariness. Did I drink too much last night? No, David, you drank exactly what you prepared for me. Every single night. The color drained from his face so quickly I thought he might faint. I don't understand. Stop lying. My voice remained steady, but ice cold. I know everything about the sleeping medication, about Vanessa, about your perfect arrangement that you bragged about to your friends. His eyes darted around the room, landing on the recording device, then shooting to his nightstand, where his phone should be. Looking for this. I held up his second phone. Or maybe the pill bottle you've been keeping hidden? The one with prescription medication that isn't yours, Maya. I can explain. Yes, you will. I stood up, crossing to the bed. You're going to explain exactly why you've been medicating your wife, without her knowledge, for over a year so you could cheat on her. You're going to explain why you let me believe I was losing my mind. Why you encouraged me to take antidepressants I didn't need. Why you documented everything like some twisted science experiment. His face hardened, the pretense of confusion dropping away. You went through my things. You took a year of my life, I replied. I think that entitled me to go through your drawer. He tried another tactic, his voice softening. I know this looks bad, but I was trying to help you. You were so stressed. You needed the rest and save it. I tossed a stack of printed screenshots onto the bed. I have the text messages, where you literally laugh about deceiving me, where you brag about how I trusted you. David's shoulders slumped, caught. Finally. What are you going to do? That depends on you, I said, sitting on the edge of the bed. The way I see it, you have two options. Option 1, you sign the divorce papers my lawyer is drawing up right now, including a settlement that acknowledges what you've done, and you disappear from my life forever. Option 2, I take all this evidence to the police and press charges for administering controlled substances, without consent, domestic abuse, and whatever else my lawyer says will stick. His eyes widened. You wouldn't? Absolutely. Would. Jen witnessed everything last night. We documented it all. And I'm guessing Vanessa doesn't know the full story either. What would she think about a man who medicates his wife unconscious? The mention of Vanessa triggered something in him. Anger flashed across his face. She understands me. She knows what it's like to feel trapped. Trapped, I echoed, incredulous. You felt trapped in our marriage. So instead of having an adult conversation or filing for divorce, you decided to essentially poison me every night? I didn't poison you, he snapped. It was just sleeping pills without my knowledge or consent, at twice the recommended dosage, while telling me my memory issues were a medical condition. Each statement landed like a slap. You stole my agency, my health, and my trust. Also, you could live a double life. He looked away, unable to hold my gaze. Why not just leave? I asked, the question that had haunted me since discovering the truth. Why go through all this elaborate deception? David's laugh was hollow. And lose half of everything? Pay alimony? Become the office pariah who left his wife? This was cleaner. You were happy. I was happy. I was not happy, I said through clenched teeth. I was scared. I thought I was seriously ill. I was losing myself piece by piece while you watched and took notes. He shrugged, and something in that casual dismissal of my suffering broke the last thread of restraint I had left. You know what's interesting, David? I spoke to your doctor yesterday. The pills you've been giving me, they can have dangerous interactions with alcohol. They can cause respiratory depression, memory problems, cognitive issues that don't resolve when the drug wears off. My voice shook with barely controlled rage. You could have killed me. Fear finally registered on his face. I was careful with the dosage. You are not a doctor, I shouted the first time my composure had broken. You have no idea what you were doing. You risked my life for your convenience. The silence that followed was deafening. Outside, a lawnmower droned. Inside, two strangers stared at each other across an unbridgeable chasm. I want you out of this house today, I said finally. My lawyer will contact yours. If you contest anything, if you try to deny what you've done, if you attempt to gaslight me or manipulate the narrative, I will not hesitate to pursue criminal charges. You have no proof, I laughed. The sound brittle. I have your confession on tape from this morning. I have the lab results. I have the camera footage of you tampering with my drink. I have your text messages bragging about it. I have witnesses. I have everything, David. The fight seemed to drain out of him. What about my things? You can arrange to collect them when I'm not here. Jen will supervise. He nodded slowly, then asked in a small voice, does anyone else know? And there it was, his true concern. Not my well-being, not remorse for his actions, but his reputation. Not yet, I said, standing up. But that's also your choice. Option 1 or option 2, David. Choose carefully. 3 weeks later, I sat across from my lawyer as she slid the final divorce papers toward me. He signed everything, she said, unable to keep the satisfaction from her voice. No contest. The settlement is exactly what we asked for. I stared at David's signature, the final punctuation mark on 8 years of marriage. He also signed the non-disclosure agreement. My lawyer continued, though I still think you should have pressed charges. This was faster. I replied. And now I can move on. Moving on meant a new house in a different neighborhood, a new job at a competing firm that had been trying to recruit me for years, therapy, to process the betrayal and reclaim my sense of security. It also meant blood tests that confirmed the sleeping medication was finally out of my system. My memory issues resolved. My health returned 6 months after that morning confrontation. I received a text from an unknown number. It's Vanessa. It read, can we meet? We sat at a cafe the following day, two women connected by the same deceitful man. He told me you were mentally unstable, she said, stirring her coffee nervously. That you needed medication but refused to take it. That he was just making sure you got the help you needed. I wasn't surprised. And you believed him? Until he started doing the same to me, she replied quietly. I found crushed pills in my tea last week, just like you described in your letter. The letter I'd sent her after the divorce was finalized, warning her about the man she was with. The letter she'd ignored. I'm pressing charges, she said, her jaw set. And I thought you should know in case you wanted to add your experience to the case. I did. Together, our testimony resulted in criminal charges that ended with David losing his job, his professional license, and eventually, his freedom. The day the verdict came in, reporters asked how I felt. I feel awake, I said simply. After a very long, forced sleep today. I run a support network for survivors of intimate partner deception. I've heard too many stories similar to mine, people whose trust was weaponized against them, whose perception of reality was manipulated by those they loved. But I've also witnessed incredible resilience, the human capacity to rebuild, to trust again with healthy boundaries, to reclaim power after someone has tried to take it away. When people ask me if I regret not seeing the signs sooner, I tell them the truth. The most dangerous traps are the ones disguised as safety. The most harmful betrayals come from the hands we hold in the dark. But I also tell them this: there is life after betrayal, there is strength in awakening, and there is power in finally seeing clearly, even when what you see breaks your heart. Because some truths, no matter how painful, set us free. If this story resonated with you, please like, follow, and share this video with someone who needs to hear that trusting their instincts is never wrong. Comment below if you've ever had that moment when something didn't feel right in a relationship, and what you did about it. Your story might help someone else recognize the warning signs in their own life. Remember, sometimes the most important thing we can do is simply pay attention to the discomfort we feel when something isn't right. It might just save us from those who would rather keep us in the dark.